Welcome to Season 7 of the Prosthetics and Orthotics podcast. This is where we chat with experts in the field, patients who use these devices, physical therapists, and the vendors who make it all happen. Our goal? To share stories, tips, and insights that ultimately help our patients get the best possible outcomes. Tune in and join the conversation. We are thrilled you are here and hope it is the highlight of your day.
Hi everyone, my name is Joris Fields, and this is another episode of the Prosthetics and Orthotics podcast. And with me, as always, is Brent Wright. How you doing, Brent?
Hey, Joris. Doing well. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I kind of wonder what's going to go on this year for the Prosthetics and Orthotics podcast and beyond, of course.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think the whole thing of what we used to do is like last year wasn't my year. This year is going to be my year. I don't think anyone's doing that anymore, right? And so that I don't think anyone's going to do that anymore. But I think, well, for the prosthetics and orthotics part of it, I think it's just going to be technological progress and just people getting ahead and maybe some consolidation. I think we're both in. Yeah, I would tend to think that would be what we're both on thinking was going to happen. What about you?
Yeah, no, I think the consolidation side of things is probably going to happen more and more. One thing I think for the Prosthetics and Orthotics podcast is, one thing that I guess I would say I'm proud of is that we've been very, very consistent. I don't know if you saw the Buzzsprout, they do what they call a backtrack of just what we did. And we released 48 episodes last year. But I know we recorded a bunch more than that, so I don't know where I'd have to look back at those numbers. We must have. Oh, you know what? We take a couple weeks between seasons. That's what it is before releasing. So, but still 48 episodes in a year is pretty doggone good.
That's awesome.
And I think the consistency is what's really attractive. And there were some crazy things that kind of came out of that. The top listened to podcast was the one that we did with Jen Rosati from Kenny Orthopedics on return on investment.
I did not expect that, actually. I thought that was actually good. I mean, maybe we should do more stuff like that and more kind of similar type themed podcasts going forward.
Yeah. Well, and I think this year is the year for business case, specifically in additive manufacturing. I can't tell you, just the last week, which I was technically on quote unquote vacation, right? I took a few calls on people that were like, my technician is out. Now I'm like, I might need to do some additive manufacturing. I'd really like to look at it for next year. How do we do that? And what's interesting about all this is these are people that I talked to in 2018 and 2019. So this idea that the change is fast is not true at all. So this is it's a 4 or 5 year process specifically to our industry for somebody to get to a point of being like, okay, I think I need to do something now.
Totally. I think it's also never been easier. A couple of years ago, you would have had to do everything yourself with CAD and learn yourself and all this. There's all these more automated CAD solutions coming out. Scanning is still difficult. I think it's still way too difficult, but we've got some simple solutions like comb and stuff coming out as well. So that's also getting better, as is file repair. And I think on the 3D printing front, the Bamboo Lab printers have made everything so much simpler and have raised the bar. So the printers are going to be a lot less finicky, let's say, a lot more capable. The really entry level, let's say, $1,000 to $2,000 printers are going to be a lot better than they were 3-4 years ago. So I think that's going to make it a lot easier. And then we have kind of more dedicated kind of like 3D printing solutions for like the filament innovation machines, much more robust kind of workhorses as well available for people who want to invest. So I think it's never been easier to do additive as well. So if you think the demand is going to increase, it's there's also a lot more tools out there to make it easier for people to do that.
Well, and I did have a question for you, Joris. We've talked to Filament Innovations and such about, the high flow stuff, big nozzles, lots of plastic coming out. But I was just actually reading an article recently about these more high speed printers printing with a 0.4 or 0.6 millimeter nozzle. And they're literally printing so fast that the strength is very similar to the high flow because the layers actually never have a chance to cool, but you get this high detail print. What are your thoughts on that? Is that just kind of a flash in the pan, or is that truly a thing?
Well, it depends. I mean, I think it could be. It depends what. For structural parts, I still think it's going to be difficult because there is like literally a wall that would need to be a little bit thicker and to be thicker to a certain extent. What really needs to happen in my mind is like more kind of customization of nozzles based upon the material and based upon the application. There's nobody who's making like a PET G nozzle for test sockets or something like that, So I think that really needs to happen. The software algorithms need to happen. Think about, or just not algorithm. Algorithm sounds really expensive, but just like people need to optimize a little bit more on software to create these structures optimally. Now, infill patterns and just basically the basically G code is made just to make everything kind of well. Nobody's really optimizing a ton to make the best kind of vase mode kind of socket, let's say, and that could really make a difference. So then once that happens, we will know if it's be a high flow or a more finer world. But also we need to know that the fine nozzle printer innovation that's happening right now is more on the kind of smaller system, so it wouldn't be useful for a test socket at the moment. And we need to get a kind of a new, bigger printer as well. That's going to really, that's going to change things. At the same time, we're seeing, the really crazy innovation like Elegoo, which is a company that's known for SLA systems or vat polymerization systems, like really inexpensive ones, has released, I think it's a $1,500 printer that's like a meter by meter by meter or something, right? Now, I don't know if it works well or anything.
Oh, wow.
But imagine just looking at that in the future, and then you've got a really huge, really slow or comparatively slow build volume printer, right? That's one. Then you've got the second one is a little bit smaller, but then a robust high flow nozzle printer, right? And then you've got your also a little bit smaller, but then your high detail printer. And then you've got your kind of Bamboo Labs for $1,000. You've got a really capable system, but it doesn't have the build volume for the biggest parts like nozzles, but it will have, will be able to print a lot of other parts, right? So those systems are going to be competing with each other. And then you've always got your kind of $200 to $300 clones, and then the material extrusion world. So that's what's shaping up to happen, is that we're really seeing, for the first time, really a segmentation in the market. And so that way, like in this nozzle thing, the high detail nozzle, I know a ton of people are really excited about that. A ton of people are really excited about systems. They're trying to make systems that use the high flow nozzle in combination with the detail nozzle, which is, of course, would be a beautiful kind of combination. And that would be another way of doing it. So I personally don't know which one of these we're going to see, but I do know we're going to see increased segmentation, increased capability, and really systems are going to be a lot less finicky across the line. And especially with these really large, cheap systems, well, that could be something to get in, and like $2,000 or something could be something to kind of, an entry level thing for a lot of people. Whereas $1,000 for a Bamboo Lab system is going to be a super good price for a lot of people to have a capable system. But that test or check socket is not going to be able to fit on that. But you can make a lot of other stuff.
Oh, that's cool. And one more question. Our guest has been graciously listening, but I think this one is an important one too. What do you say? What do you see happening in the powder bed fusion world? I mean, is it going to, as far as systems that are going to become more affordable, the affordable systems now have a very small build volume and not necessarily great for prosthetics, but do you see some movement there in the powder bed fusion or not really?
I don't know. I think it's a difficult market. It's a difficult, there's a lot of, no client has ever spontaneously come up to me and say, I would like a powder bed fusion system for 15K or 100K, right? Now, Formlabs has proved before that it can make markets, and it really is, Fuse is really selling several thousand systems a year or something like that, and that is like, that is something that is going to move that market to a certain extent. We also know that financing wise, it's not great for these companies. They really have a kind of a hump to overcome, and they're not doing this hockey stick growth thing. So I don't think a lot of other people will come to bring these systems, these really entry level systems like 15 to 50K, a lot of new markets. Now we do know that WeMount got acquired by 3D Systems, That's growing to a certain extent as well. So there is movement on that side of the market when compared to like last 10 years, let's say, right? But the problem is that powder bed fusion is amazing. Lots of really detailed parts, and to have that really makes sense. You need quite a big system like an MGF system or a P110 or something from nails. And then the economics of it are really quite stellar because you're doing like a batch to batch type system where you're going to take 2,000 or something or 5,000 or something, then put it in a depowdering station and resurface it in a different station, and then boom, you have all that money or all that part. So that's actually quite advantageous. Now, if you're looking at the other systems, you're looking at a system that's quite small, but at the same time is kind of a messy system around the office when compared to a material extrusion system. You're going to be vacuuming a lot, it's going to be annoying, and you're not going to probably need that yield. So there's kind of a little bit of there's nobody's really figured out what the right kind of go-to market is, and also what the right price / performance / thing criteria is to make those really entry-level systems really work. And I think Formlabs is continuing to improve it. I think Formlabs is a formidable company. I think they'll get it right eventually. And they really are known to locking down all the variables and making it easy for people to use these systems. And they're coming up with a complete solution, as is 3D Systems on the entry-level front as well, as is some of the other firms working on that as well. So it'll get better over the next couple of years. But for if you're looking at leasing or buying an MGS system, that's actually, for several practices together, that's actually semi-affordable. And then you can actually really have a lot of yield and make a lot of money. So I think more of the innovation is going to be on that side. We expect more automation, more kind of batch to batch based tools and offerings, from part tracking to certain part identification to receiving for the larger systems, right? And I would expect far soon another kind of more entry level systems to kind of come in between them and do better than they have been. And indeed, some of the far soon more entry-level systems, I still wouldn't recommend them to most people, but they have been making a lot more headway in the last 2 to 3 years than in the previous years in offering a more affordable solution to the market and that kind of like an alternative to the entry-level MGF and P110 systems they have. For most people, I think it still makes the most sense to if you want to prototype or make functional end-use parts that don't have to be pretty, get a material extrusion system. If you want molds, or it has to be super pretty, or casting or something like that, get a SLA printer, which are super affordable, super cheap right now, and then either save up for a user service for a P110 or an MGF or HP MGF system for most other people. There's nothing out there that I really feel like you don't even have like an entry level MGF system, right? Or an entry level kind of SLS or powder bed fusion system. Right, and you love machines, you make machines. I don't have one either, right? That's just something. if like super nerds like us don't buy these things, just because we feel we have to, and I still think that the much larger, bigger system is a lot better economics at the moment.
No, I think that is. I think that's great insight, and I mean, it sounds like we kind of both land on the same thing: is spend your money and time learning how to design for the systems, outsource where you need to, and then and that's where you get the economies of scale, is knowing how to design. And then once you have a business case for it, you make the decision then to pull the trigger on a machine.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think a lot of people overlook that part of that service. When you said you wanted to do like a service, a 3D print service, I tried to talk you out of it, right? I was like cheering you on. I was like, don't do it.
100%. So, well, I'm super excited. Jeff Soelberg is with us today. He is the founder of Jeff Giving a Hand. He is also a major advocate of people that have had some sort of partial hand or finger amputation. He is an ambassador for Point Designs. We've had Levin on, we've had Chris on from Point Designs, and now we've got Jeff on, and we're going to make sure that Jeff's episode is more listened to than either of the other two, right, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, so first off, Jeff, I'm thinking here that you're probably on the more the patient side of things, let's say. So I'm gonna usually ask, how did you get in touch with the prosthetics or orthotics and prosthetics? But I'm thinking that your initiation wasn't a happy one, let's say.
No. So 7.5 years ago, I was involved in an industrial accident where my glove got caught in the machine and it pulled majority of 3 fingers off. And over the course of my journey, I've had 9 surgeries. And at this stage, I am a full 3-finger amputee. And I can remember laying in the hospital bed, being the husband, the father, the breadwinner at the time, wondering, okay, what is life going to be like going forward? Is life over for me? And there just wasn't information out there. So with that, I have continually searched, and I do peer support through several organizations, Amputee Coalition and stuff. And I'm just a constant learner and trying to share what I'm learning with everyone else. Because I call us finger partial hands the lost kids. The numbers are so skewed, no one knows for sure, and everything.
Gotcha. So we've had a couple of people on who are like teenagers or kids when they had this. We asked them about like, the self-image as children going up or that teen period. And for you, yeah, you like you said, you're already a husband, you're already thinking, and you thought your life was over. Did you mean that you were worried about like, can I be the breadwinner, or did you really see yourself as like being less of a man, less of a human somehow, or were you just worried about the economics of this whole thing and saying, oh my God, I can never have a job again?
Well, first and foremost was the breadwinner side of things. But then also, I was 53 years old when I had my accident. And so, yeah, what could I still do? And it's been an amazing journey. I've proven a lot of things and have gone on to set world records and competed in both physical activities and, just learned to live life.
Okay. And what was it like for your family, your kids and your wife? Like, were they super supportive, or did you kind of like want to push them away at times as well? Because you were kind of like that, you found that kind of like a little bit too smothering maybe? Or how were they in this? Because I think, you do this as a family, let's say, right? But it does interfere with you being a family essentially at the same time.
Yeah, well, there's many ups and downs, and, not taking anything away from any other type of limb loss, but our fingers are our number one used limb on our body. Yet they're so small. Everyone, it's within our DNA, kind of size dominant. So everyone looks at fingers as a small thing, yet us that are missing the fingers, it's a very big thing. And so it's been a struggle, and trying to educate everyone about that struggle. That's how I've, got my voice, and to help others get their voice. Is my ex-wife now, but, one day I took and I taped up 3 of her fingers and said, here, go about your day and see what it's like. And, she went 5 minutes and just looked at me and said, I can't do this, and ripped the tape off. And it's like, oh, okay, I can't do that. My fingers are never coming back.
And for you, was this like, psychologically speaking, was this something you wanted to overcome, or do you want to accept it, or are you kind of like, or did you ignore it for a long time? You're just like, oh yeah, I'll just keep on going, and what was your mechanism, if you will?
Well, it's a mental struggle, major, for finger partial hands, because we do so much. I've tried to be as positive as possible, but I have both a mild prosthetic and a manual, but there's no touch sensation in the prosthesis. And so you have to rely on other senses, sight being the most used one. And so I'm always looking at my amputation, so to speak. And so it's a lot of roller coaster up and down. And I advocate for mental health. I meet with a mental health counselor twice a month, and I call them brain dump sessions, where, I just go in and talk about my struggles for the last couple of weeks. And I've found that by doing that, the ship is more steady. It's not going to the top and crashing. You are driving home and someone cuts you off and you just go postal on them, and more even keeled. And again, I advocate for all to have that mental health.
Okay. And so, would you say that's something like let's say you're in your hospital bed, right? And you're like you're at the later age. What is this? Like, if you had like a plan, like 5 things you should do, like one of them is going to be, you should everyone should seek counseling. That's just like a thing to do. What are some other things you would suggest people do in that situation?
Well, because of the mental stresses and stuff, I advocate for, get out, go for walks. Majority, your legs still work, so don't give me the excuse you can't get out. Early on, as I was recovering, I was 4-6 weeks into my recovery, and I was at the gym working out. You could only sit home for so long and watch so much TV, or you're zoning out. And majority of us being trauma victims deal with pain. And if you're sitting around, I don't care how strong you are, your mind's going to migrate to that pain center. So you got to offset that somehow. Get out, live life again, see what you can do. I mean, that's the whole realm of things. We're a reactive society, muscle memory. And that's part of the struggle. For 53 years, I did things a certain way. And so it's going to take me another 50 years to retrain my brain to do things differently.
Okay. The thing, if you're in that situation, right, then, exercise always seems to be, I think that's one thing that we hear from everyone, is that exercise is so important, and taking care of yourself mentally is so important. When did you start talking to like the prosthetics thing, or when did you start like talking about it? Was that something immediate when you were saying? Were you like, I need a prosthetic now, or did that come via the medical community, or how did that happen?
Well, within my situation, I had 5-7 surgeries over 8 months. And so I was continually going up and down. I didn't get, so to speak, stabilized to the point of a prosthetic till about 8 months in. Then I reached out to a couple organizations and stuff, and settled on hanger clinics here locally. And at that point, went in, talked to them. They gave me a couple of different options, and we started the process then.
When you were looking for, say a prosthetic place or something like that, did you have anybody kind of like what you're doing as far as mentoring and advocating? Did you have anybody kind of speaking into your life at that time, or was it you were kind of on your own?
at that point in time, literally, I was on my own. My hand surgeon really didn't have any information, and he gave me a couple of names of, prosthetic companies to go talk to, but he just like, this isn't my world. And I didn't find a lot on the internet at that point in time. So as I go forward, I use my own personal experiences to drive what I do in helping other individuals find stuff. And kind of, let's say, with Point Designs, we've grown together because literally they came on the market in January of 2017, and I met with Hanger February, March of 2017. So I've grown up with them.
Oh, wow. Wow. So, I mean, do you feel as far as your situation specifically, I mean, I know you had to advocate for yourself and such, and you said that there wasn't much information out there, and you're doing a lot to change that. How would having access to that information, or what access would have made your journey a little bit easier, do you feel? And what do we need to do to improve on that? Because it does sound like the hand surgeons, as talented as they may be, it sounds like there just needs to be some education on what happens life after surgery as well.
100% on that. Both the hand surgeons, all involved, hand surgeons, hand therapists, insurance companies, they all need to get educated, because in my peer support, I've heard so many stories, it's, how do I want to say this? Kind of a weird scenario that, people don't realize that you have to have a prescription to get the insurance company to pay for your prosthetic. And I hear stories, you got this good hand surgeon that's been doing surgeries for 20 years, and they have to sign that script. And they say, well, there's nothing out there for you, so I'm not going to sign the script, because they don't have the knowledge of what's out there. And then, on the insurance side of things, they go, oh, you got 7 other fingers. Why do you need those 3?
Yeah, that's crazy. And we talked about this before. Like, would it benefit? What do you think is there a solution to this? Because there's always going to be different healthcare providers, different areas. There's always going to be this kind of cannibalization kind of thing going on with different areas that are encroaching on different areas, or different experts, which maybe could contradict each other or maybe couldn't know each other. We talked before about this idea of having like one case manager for a patient or something like that. I mean, do you have any other ideas? Do you have any ideas of what would be like ideal solutions for this?
Well, I think case managers, for individuals or specialized case managers, is ideal idea to get things going. I know workers' comp case, and it's very frustrating on my side. My company that I work for, they're privately insured on workers' comp. I've had 3 different management companies, and I don't know how many case managers over the last 7.5 years. And, it seems like every time I send in a bill or something, I got a new case manager. And I spend, a couple months trying to track down who I'm supposed to be in contact with. And advocating for all of this stuff, well, my goal for 2024 is I'm going to start posting a lot of videos of what my prosthesis has given back to me. Simple little things. Trying to zip up a coat. In my situation, I have my index, my middle, and ring finger are the amputated ones. I have my thumb and my pinky. So it's a stretch from one end of the hand to the other to touch those together. And then little fine things like zippers, to try and hold on to it and manipulate it. Or also, I love my meat and potatoes. Try holding on to a fork with just your thumb and pinky. Or to cut, if it is a steak knife. There are so many little daily struggles that we just don't think about.
Okay, and in that thing, have you? Well, as a, but also you're older, right? So as in getting used to newer prostheses or getting used to newer development, that's also more difficult, right? I mean, is it more difficult now to learn? Do you have tips for people in saying like, how do you get yourself to really, work this device better and better every time?
Yeah, well, wearing them, you get more familiar. But again, muscle memory, it's still to this day, there's probably an 80% likelihood that your accident's going to happen to your dominant hand. So I still reach for doorknobs with my right hand. And if it's, a round doorknob, even with my prosthesis on, it is a struggle if it's kind of tight. So that goes back to the mental struggle, the voices in our head. When are you going to learn to use the hand to open the door? And so learning to overcome that muscle memory, the react.
Okay. And for your own choice, you have several. Well, was the prosthetic part, was that really important to you, or is it less important, or did you struggle for a long time? You mentioned before, but you have to look at this thing all day. Is that the looks of the thing, is it really important to you, or would you really like it to be much more hand-like at this point?
We're all different in that situation. And I had a lady that early on, I think we all are struggling with appearance and stuff. And I'd been going to the gym for a couple weeks, and this very dear friend of mine came up to me one day. And at that point in time, my arm was in a sling, wrapped up and everything. And I was guarded, kind of protecting everyone else's view of what I thought was very ugly and sick and gross. Because they had to cut my forearm open to increase blood flow, and I got skin grafts everywhere. I got some gnarly scars. And she comes up to me and she asks, "Can I see it?" And I kind of make the sarcastic off-the-cuff comment to her that I hope it doesn't gross her out. And I take and unwrap it, and she takes and she looks at it very intently for a period of time. And then she looked me in the eyes and she goes, "It's not as bad as I thought it'd be." And at that point in time, she made things better. I had been starting to build a wall, protecting everyone else's view of things that I thought were ugly. And now I could go share it, so to speak. And so now it has become my badge of honor. And I have no problem showing everybody everything. And I've overcome those things. But everyone is different. I hear stories of, ladies struggle a lot more than men because, especially if they go and get their nails done every couple of weeks. And all of a sudden they only have 9, 8, 7, maybe 5 nails to get done. That's really a mental struggle for them.
Okay, and if you talk about, like, if you could make your prosthesis a little bit better, like some not magic here, not like one-on-one functioning arm, brain powered, whatever magic, well, which we will get to eventually, I think, through engineering, but that is going to take some years yet, and maybe a lot of money as well. What are some incremental improvements that you would really like? The touch thing seems really important to you. Would you like to, to be able to, more motion, more control? What's really important to you?
Yeah, well, recently I was in New York at a hand surgeons conference, and the conference I was at before that, I sat in on a presentation where they were just within my myoelectric, you got open and close. And you choose different grip patterns as to which fingers open and close. And I turned to this individual behind me and I go, what I want is to be able to, with my myo hand, move each finger independently. And I'm in New York, and I sit in on this presentation by this surgeon out of Carolinas, and they call it starfish. And they move muscles around and take the myo hand and put sensors on each finger. And I met this individual that could move each finger on his myo prosthetic independently. And it was interesting because as individuals that have all 10 fingers and stuff working with us, you kind of make your own assumptions of what we want. And it's not necessarily actually what we want. And they said, being able to do that, unless you're, playing the piano, playing the guitar or something like that, you really don't use your fingers independently that much. And in their process of talking with these individuals that had it and stuff, and they go, yeah, I might only use that 3 times a year, but I want to have that option to do it when I want to do it or need to do it. And so we need more communication both ways. I can educate the doctors, the prosthetists, and everything as much as they can educate me. So my latest 3D printed frame, I got a year ago, and it's my 4th frame, of which, I went in, 6 years ago now, 6.5 years ago to get fitted the first time, and we do the impression. They make up the prosthesis, and they go, put it on, and they go, well, how's it feel? Well, it's heavy. How's it supposed to feel? We don't know. And over time, each one has gotten better. And this 3D printed prosthesis is the ultimate in my eyes. It feels so good. Before it, I looked at my prosthetic as being a tool to make my life better. This last year, this has become an extension of my body. Before I might have worn it for a few hours and then have to take breaks. I take and put on my prosthesis at 4:30 in the morning, and I'll wear it till 10 o'clock at night. I mountain bike, I kayak, I do all types of different activities. I'm still working the job I did, and I'm pulling pumps and doing all types of activities, and it's just amazing what the 3D has given to me.
So on your journey, you've obviously made your journey known about point designs and such. And it sounds like it's been quite the collaboration between Hanger and Point, the clinical and the manufacturing side of things. What are some suggestions that you have for somebody looking for a prosthetist that's in your situation? Because like you said, it's very much an underserved population, and I would say that a lot of people don't have that kind of experience with partial hands. What do you look for?
Well, yes, you need to find someone that specializes or has done several partial hands. Now, with that being said, Point Design is creating a system that helps more that haven't. But if you're just going not through Point, so to speak, to begin with, you need to find someone. The fingers are so different than legs. And, you had Matt on last year now, that he specializes in going through your training. In school, you only get maybe 10% of your training is in fingers, partial hands, and they're so different. Every one of us is different. We might have part of our finger still, and so you got to find the individual that has done it. I've heard too many horror stories of, I'll talk to an individual, tell them what's available and stuff, and they run to the first guy down the street, and he sees them coming through the door, and he's just like, oh, all right, I get a partial here. And he starts working with them, and he tries to sell them on, the latest and greatest, cats me out, and then everything falls apart. And it falls apart in many different ways. Coding, we know that's a nightmare and everything. But on the prosthetist side of things, they need to let egos go to the wayside and ask questions, reach out to individuals like Matt, Chris, and stuff that do the partial hands, ask questions. In talking, and this goes both upper and lower, talking, 3D printing is still kind of in its infancy on the prosthetic side of things. And I've heard horror stories with leg amputees that, their guy was trying to learn 3D printing, And he kept making sockets for them that sucked. And if things don't feel good or fit, you're not going to wear it. I mean, one example that I use that I think everyone can relate to is, you're walking around and you get something in your shoe and it feels like a boulder. And you sit down and you take your shoe off and it's a grain of sand. And that's what the prosthetists need to take the time and not rush things. I know individuals that their first prosthetic was amazing, and then they go for the second time, and whatever the circumstances were, the time frame, whatever, they got rushed, and their second prosthetic is lousy, doesn't fit good. And so we need to take the time to make sure it's right and humble ourselves to ask the questions and reach out, let our egos go to the wayside.
And then one thing that's really interesting to me, like, how much research do you do? I mean, you know what I mean? Do you just show up and be like, okay, help me? Is it a really passive way? We've talked to some people that are patients that like really go really deep technically and spend a lot of time with it. And for them, I think it's a bit healing. That's healing in and of itself as well. How if you would just recommend somebody with like partial hand or something like that, how much time would you spend researching these topics, like researching how to use the hand, researching how to find a good prosthetist, that kind of thing? Is this a daily thing for you, or is this a big spurt at the beginning? What kind of thing is it for you?
Well, I live and breathe it myself. But on the new patient side of things, they need to reach out. They need to check things out. We're all totally different. I am physical manual labor, so my point digits are what I use most of the time. If I was working in an office type atmosphere, I might wear my mile more. And so and then within the partial fingers, you got your naked prosthetics and stuff. So they need to research a lot themselves, but then have a list of questions to ask the prosthetist and understand what the limitations are in all of them. Because I don't care if you're upper or lower, nothing replaces original equipment.
Of course. And what was it like for you to find employment again? Was that a really difficult journey? Was it also, would you find it difficult to show up to the interview, if you will, because of what people thought, things like that?
Well, I was blessed. I still work for the company that I was working for at the time of my accident. But it is, again, a mental struggle. Anyone with challenges struggle with feeling lesser than before, and it goes back to the stories we have in our heads. So I think there's good companies out there and bad companies also, because I've heard horror stories that, individual has an accident and the company says, well, you're no good to me, and cut them loose right then. And that just builds on to their negative thoughts of not being good or whole. And so it's a downward spiral. So that's part of my advocacy, is to educate that we can still do stuff. We still have a head, a brain, that we might have to change our profession and stuff, but we're still very productive. I mean, look at individuals in wheelchairs and stuff, and amazing things that they do, with just, in a clinician or office type atmosphere.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's wonderful. And the other thing I think, what I would find, I often, the best advice I've ever gotten, like on the psychological front, is to be kinder to yourself, right? Like a lot of people, for example, if you're late for work or something, you'll be like, blame yourself. Oh my God, I don't believe you missed this, and you're late for the meeting. You're so stupid. But if a colleague of yours are late, you're like, oh, well, John's a bit late. It's fine, So a lot of people could take this advice of being kinder to oneself and imagine you're a friend to oneself and say, okay, well, you do take responsibility for being late, but you probably shouldn't shout at yourself mentally as much as you do. But to me, the whole idea about this, what would be really tough for me personally, the way I'm wired, would be this whole thing. I would always blame myself for this accident. I would always be like, oh, if you just had that glove, like 1 second later, if you would have just paid more attention. Did you have a lot of that as well, that you kind of really thought, oh, if you weren't, you could have done better? Or that would be, for me, if I'm trying to think about your situation, that would be really tough for me. I would just replay that over in my mind over and over again and just blame myself every single time.
Oh, yes. And that was, again, so early on, I advocate for, a good hand surgeon, good hand therapist, and that's a specialized field there too. Trauma psychologist. I met with a trauma psychologist for a year every week, and he taught me to be able to tell my story, but also to not beat myself up over things. It's still a give and take, and that's with everything. I mean, within everyone's world, how many times do you, have a fight with husband, wife, significant other, and you don't sleep good, and you get up and you go into work, and you're a little tired, and the first person comes up to you and they go, "Good morning, how's things going?" And you just kind of bite your tongue a little bit and you go, "Oh, all's good," and go about your day. But you're sitting there struggling. We need to have more empathy for each other, and we need to be able to voice our struggles too.
Okay, I think that's really, really very, very sound advice. Really nice way to really articulate this in a very positive way, let's say. And another thing is like, at work, did you have? You said that manual labor, the type of job so you're like a machine operator or something. What kind of job do you have, and how did that change the prosthetic you wear for work? Did you get like a really specialized one, or was it kind of more a general one you learned to use for your work?
So I'm a machinist for an oil refinery, and I wear my Point Designs prosthetic at work for the most part. It's very robust, 3D printed titanium fingers that are capable of lifting 150 pounds per finger. And my big struggle was, and again, this is part of my mental struggle, is I have to wear gloves, part of my personal protective equipment at work. And before the 3D printed frame a year ago, I had a carbon fabricated. And to get gloves that would go over that frame was my worst nightmare. I've gone to glove manufacturers. I've used shoe repair individuals, and, they would say, yeah, we can do it. And I'd take them a dozen of them to do. And I'd go pick them up a month later, and they'd more or less tell me, yeah, this is a bigger pain in the butt than we anticipated, don't come back type thing. I've never had two individuals or companies do a set of gloves for me 2 times in a row. And everything had to be modified. Then I get this frame a year ago, and I think his second day I had it, I walked into a Walmart, walked to the glove aisle, and I pulled a pair of gloves off the shelf and literally put the glove on. And at that point in time, I started crying, because that was, a big hurdle and struggle within my world that just became a norm again. I could go to the store and buy a pair of gloves just like everyone else.
No, this is wonderful. I love this idea. It's just something that's super specific to you. But of course, you wear them your whole working life. So this is super important. Of course, it makes sense. But I can imagine that a lot of designers, implants, maybe don't consider something like that. Yet for anyone working in a kind of factory floor kind of environment, the glove is something you have that every day. Gloves and the shoes, maybe your glasses. You probably have glasses as well. That's stuff you have on your head all the time, and you it's not optional, and everyone has them. So I could really, really imagine that being the case.
Yeah, like I said, I literally started crying that day.
Okay, so and imagine I have like a kind of a similar kind of event happen to me. Like how do I get in touch with you? How can you help me? How do your advocacy and the stuff you do help me? How do you want to get in touch with people like yourself, essentially?
So I am on most every social media platform out there. Jeff Soelberg, or Jeff Giving a Hand. And I also have my foundation, jeffgivingahand.org, where I stay in my lane, so to speak, and I've become the voice for the finger partial hand community. And I know a lot about other things, and I can guide people to other areas. But if it's finger partial hands, reach out to me, and I have enough connections that I can help individuals find the best person in their area. And the sad thing on the finger partial hand world is there are 45,000 finger amputations a year on average. Of that 45,000, less than 5% get a prosthetic, because the majority are denied by insurance companies. So, as I build the foundation, our focus is to change that and to try and help individuals get prosthetics too in those denied situations. So I also am part of advocacy organizations where we will try and go to bat for the individuals.
That sounds really wonderful, Jeff. That sounds like a really noble kind of thing to be doing, and really helpful. And thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me on. I do it all because I live this struggle every day. And I've been very blessed in having 2 different prosthetics. And so knowing what my struggles are is why I give back to the individuals like I do, trying to make the world a better place.
Well, thank you so much for that, Jeff. And thank you for being here today on the show again, Brent.
Oh, this has been great. Thanks, Jeff, so much for your insight and also your advocacy for really the whole limb difference community, but also for 3D printing. I mean, we didn't get much into it. You definitely foreshadowed quite a bit, but it sounds like, the 3D printing side of things, not only from finding gloves that fit, but also comfort has changed the way that you interact with your prosthesis.
It has 100%. And watch out. I'll be reaching out to you, Brent, to have you speak on the 3D side of things to help educate more to individuals looking to navigate this world that we're in.
All right. That's awesome. Look forward to it.
All right, and thank you very much for listening to us today. This is another episode of the Prosthetics and Orthotics podcast with Brent Wright and Norris Fields. You have a wonderful day.